Hey everybody, David Chatham with Angel Oak Creative here. Welcome to the latest Nonprofit State of Minds episode for our podcast. Grateful for all of you who do listen and have downloaded the podcast. This is our first attempt at a podcast, so we've been really excited about the interest and the engagement. So grateful for that. Today we're talking about a topic that is really hitting the forefront of discussions with nonprofits, artificial intelligence. And, sometimes I feel like I've got artificial intelligence. I don't think it's real sometimes, but we're talking about a different kind of artificial intelligence. We're blessed to be able to have Shereese Floyd. She's the founder of AI Consultants for Nonprofits. Welcome, Shereese.
Hi, David. How are you? Thank you for
I
having
am
me.
well, thank you. Shereese and I met a little while back on LinkedIn, and we had a great conversation. I had a million questions, and Shereese seemed to have about a million answers. So we're decided that this might be something that nonprofits should learn more about and might gain some value from. So welcome. We're talking about this year at Angel Oak. We're talking about building a stronger state of nonprofits, right?
Mhm.
Helping North Carolina nonprofits to really become more effective, to make a bigger impact.
Mhm.
Curious, as we get into this, how AI might play a role in that. So before we get started, though, tell us a little bit about you, Shereese. How did you get into the world of nonprofits and AI?
Yeah, so I've been in nonprofit world for about 20 years now. Nonprofit marketing has been my jam. Anything that was around communications, public relations, development, all of that, how we throw everything into a hat. So I've been in this world for a very long time. I've always had a love of tech, started with digital marketing and Facebook ads for nonprofits and running campaigns. And AI was just the next big thing, and just got involved with using it, understanding the background of it and the nature of nonprofits, and thought, yeah, this is something that we need to know about, that we can use to, not be behind the curve, so to speak.
Well, there's a lot of talk out there about it, putting people out of work, and there's a lot of talk about it, the being something that might have some ethical issues. So we'll get into some of that. But in the spirit of artificial intelligence, I asked Chat GPT to come up with the questions I'm going to ask you. So if these are bad, you can blame artificial intelligence, and if they're good, I'll take credit for using
Okay.
the technology. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. After Shereese and I spoke, and I've played around with it a little bit in the past, but I really sat down and started banging on it as far as what it can do for nonprofits. I asked it to write a donor thank you letter for a particular nonprofit that we work with. I asked it to come up with some names for, some campaigns. Really disappointed in ChatGPT's performance there, but it was all fun. So, as we think about, I guess first of all, for those who may not be as aware, can you explain artificial intelligence just at the most basic level in the way that we're talking about it?
Yeah, it really is just a series of computers that is mimicking us, mimicking human beings. If any of us have been around long enough and we watch the cartoon The Jetsons, we are now in the age of the Jetsons. And so essentially it's just the computers that have been inputted with a lot of data that are designed, when we're talking about generative AI, and that's the AI that can create things from scratch or out of thin air. It's really just designed to mimic humans and either make our lives better or, be our end. We'll have to decide.
Right, exactly. The villain, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first Chat GPT question that came up was, what are the potential benefits of AI for nonprofits? What might they gain from exploring the use of artificial intelligence?
Well, it really is going to give you that one thing that nonprofits often never have enough money of, never have enough of, money being one of them, but time is what I was referring to.
Yeah.
It can significantly produce things so much quicker when it has been trained to do so. And it really does help nonprofits save time and put out more information quickly and efficiently. And so that's the best benefit that it has, is that it can act, as I like to say, have it act as your newest team member. And so if you are charged with doing more with less, ChatGPT can fill in that gap until you can grow your capacity.
And from a practical standpoint, I gave a couple of examples, like, generating a donor thank you letter, or maybe helping to brainstorm some themes or names. What are some of the real practical uses that you've seen the nonprofits that you're serving? How have they utilized Chat GPT specifically, but artificial intelligence in general?
Yeah, the three biggest ones that we see used the most, or the quickest, like this is the one that we're like, can it help with this, is social media. Putting together a social media editorial calendar and style of posts. Fundraising, grant writing proposals is huge in terms of having it learn how to put together an effective proposal. And then the marketing campaigns, putting together a complete marketing campaign from start to finish.
Wow.
And just giving you like a step-by-step on what to do. And, having your team kind of follow that. So those are the three biggest ones that people utilize it for immediately out of the gate. But it also can help in terms of administrative tasks. It's very, very good at taking information and parsing it and telling you where something is missing. So if you have a marketing plan already, or a development plan, and you put it into ChatGPT, it can tell you what's missing from it, or what its ideas would be. And there's also the uses around board development, where it can put together board packets and as you mentioned, thank you notes. There's so many, but those are the top three that we often see: the fundraising, the marketing, and the social media.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's, again, one of the questions Chat GPT proposed was thinking about it ethically, right? What are the ethical standards that we might need to take into mind when we're using any sort of artificial intelligence, from a transparency perspective, from how are we using it in a positive way versus any that might cause harm or detriment? What considerations need to be made ethically for this kind of technology?
This one is a very good question. So thank you, ChatGPT, for bringing this up.
I don't know that I would have thought of it. So, I got to give credit to that one. So
there are a number of ethical considerations we want to consider. First is that this model had to be trained by humans, and humans are fallible. And so there is a certain amount of bias that is built into ChatGPT. And so if you are using it and you see that, you would want to make sure that whatever information that it's giving you aligns with your mission. No matter what information, it aligns with your mission, aligns with the tone of your mission, aligns with your strategic plans. Additionally, it's not always fact-based. It has information through September of 2021. So it needs to be fact-checked. Whatever comes out of it, you want to make sure that you run it through some sort of plagiarism checker. If you're using it to write white papers or speeches or anything like that, you definitely want to run it through a plagiarism checker. Ethically, you also want to think about, because it is a technology that has the capability to move faster than a human, if you use it and you shorten up time for a staff member, you also want to be cognizant of not just dumping more onto onto a person. And then you also want to not have it replace real humans, because it's a computer, it has human simulation, but it doesn't have empathy. It doesn't really think like a human. You can train it to do that, but there are instances where things will come out of it that the nuance of being a human is not actually there. So you want to actually make sure that you have someone review what's coming out of it and not just take it and use it. And then whatever is produced from ChatGPT, you do not own the copyright to it. And so if you take something from it and use it exactly as it comes out of ChatGPT, you do not own that. So you do have to edit it, add your flavor to it, your mission, your thoughts, your values, all of that to it, and create something that then you can put your stamp on.
Wow. Yeah, I had not considered almost any of that. So that's helpful. The, you know, you know, one of the things that we really stress here at Angel Oak is authenticity, right? Is, you know, being who you are, leaning into that, owning that. So I think it's a really good reminder to people that, you know, you have to take what is generated and make it your own, and, you know, really put your own style, your own language to it. Your vocabulary may be different that you use within your organization. So it's not, you know, I think it certainly could attract people to start to get a little lazy about how they're creating content, because they start to rely on it too much. So I certainly think having those standards in place and making sure people understand just, you know, how important it is that it be authentic and true to their nonprofit, to their organization. What, again, returning back to ChatGPT, what challenges have you seen that nonprofits run into once they start to utilize, you know, an AI platform, or, you know, whether it's maybe over dependence on it or other things, but what challenges have you seen once they started using it and making it part of their process?
Yeah, that is the exact answer I was going to give. It's the overuse and overdependence on the tool. It is a tool. It's not meant to be, again, a replacement. Now you can build it, like I said before, if you have a gap in your capacity, you can build it to function in that gap until you get a human, or unless you get a human. It doesn't matter, but it can function in that gap. And with any new tool, because if you sit down with it and play around with it, it can save you time, but it can also take time away. As with anything, the amount of use in, you know, nonprofits, I've seen people just kind of they use it and then they want to use it for every single thing. Now, there is a way to integrate it into your operations where you have guidelines around its use, but not for every single function. And they can spend hours just playing around with it to waste a lot of time. And it will give you all the information that you need, but then you have this whole, you know, brain dump or artificial brain dump of information, where now you've got ideas that are all over the place, and you have to be realistic about what you actually can implement. Because if you play with it and tell it your wish list of eradicating the mission that you're serving, it's going to give you that. But do you really have the capacity, the time, and the money to implement that? And so that is some of the challenges that I've seen.
Yeah, I think one of the queries I inserted was something about how do we end homelessness or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, just see it. Yeah, I mean, you know, it was interesting to see how that worked. If someone's interested in moving into AI with their nonprofit, what kind of expenses are involved in that? What kind of processes are involved in getting started and implementing it?
hmm Well, anyone can get started for $0 like today because it's free to do the basic version.
It
And
costs me nothing to generate these
yes,
questions.
it's free just to go ahead and sign up for it and to play around with it and see what it will do for you. And even the paid version of it that has more plugins where it can read video, text to speak. It has all of these little fun features to it that will actually can waste a lot of time. But even that version is only $20 a month. So it's very inexpensive to get started with it. When you talk about actually integrating it into your organization, again, it can be relatively inexpensive to have someone come and train the staff on how to use it, best practices around using it. It starts to add up as you start integrating it throughout your whole organization. But if you are listening to this right now and you aren't using it yet, you can go to, I think it's OpenAI, or just enter ChatGPT into Google and you can sign up for it right now and start using it.
Talk about, you and I have talked about maybe, doing some training with Angel Oak Creative. What value does training bring to an organization, and what does that process look like? What are the things that they would learn in terms of getting any sort of, whether it's you or maybe another trainer, what would they gain from that time and that investment?
Yeah. The initial thing with ChatGPT, again, is artificial intelligence. And the biggest issue that people have with it is getting it to sound like a real human. Because it's very literal. Whatever you ask, it's going to literally answer the question without that nuance that we talked about before. So it's the idea of training it. You need to train it to know what your mission is, understand the values, what the beliefs is, what is it that you're ultimately trying to solve. And so the training allows, my team or any other team to come in and say, how do we get it to really sound like you? So when you put it in, yes, you're going to still need to edit it, but you don't need to completely rewrite it. And if you're going to completely rewrite it, you might as well sit down and do it yourself. It's understanding how to train it and to get it to actually sound like a human. And then the beauty of ChatGPT is the prompt engineering. How do you prompt it so that you don't have to, so it will give you what you want in the first, maybe second prompt versus 10 prompts down the line where you're irritated and annoyed with it and you're like, okay, this just doesn't work, kind of thing. Right. It's then just taking whatever personal, every nonprofit that I've worked with, everyone has their own identity and they have a unique situation that's unto them, and how to personalize it to the degree that people can understand how each person in the organization can use it to their benefit, where it's not just spitting out the stuff for the marketing or the development team, how the admin person can use it efficiently. So the baseline is really training it to sound like the organization.
And what is a realistic time frame for that to, I guess it's always learning, right? But as far as the setup time frame, you're talking about a few hours, a few days, a few weeks. What does that look like?
A few hours to train it to sound like you and to go through specific use cases that you have. And that is enough for a lot of nonprofits we work with. It's like, okay, you can come in and do that and let us see how this works for us. For those who have chosen to integrate it in everything, then that is like a 30 to 60 day process. It takes a little bit longer because they're integrating it from start to finish, from the onboarding process to the exiting process. And so it's tools outside of ChatGPT. So it's AI specific to those different functions.
Are there, it seems like the use is pretty universal for nonprofits, but are there any nonprofits that shouldn't use it, or that, maybe there's a limited use for that? Are there, either from a mission perspective or from a, just a practical perspective of it not being as useful?
Mhm. I would say that it has the potential to help any mission, but there are specific missions where privacy and autonomy are very important. Domestic violence comes to mind, homelessness, things like that. So you want to be really careful, and that's also one of the ethical things you want to consider: the data and the privacy that when you're using it. I don't recommend, or anyone that I know that uses AI recommend that you're putting specific client details into it, because at the end of the day, we don't really know where this information is actually going. We recommend that you keep it specific to the mission that you're actually serving, and not down into the nitty-gritty. So if you want to do a personalized donor thank you, and you are including a very personal response for a story that you're including, you can do that, but the information that you put into ChatGPT, make it more of a composite than the actual person. And then once it comes out of ChatGPT, you can edit it with the information for the person.
No, that's very wise considerations there. One of the constant challenges that nonprofits face is managing data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is CRMs and all of those things, especially those that are of maybe a little larger, that have to really manage the data and the databases. And maybe it's related to programming, maybe it's related to fundraising, but can AI assist in helping to manage that data, to help analyze that data, and ultimately help make decisions about how you're using it, or is that a step beyond AI's capacity?
No, absolutely. This is one of the hallmarks. If you were to ask ChatGPT, how could it help nonprofits? Data-driven decisions is one of the things it's going to keep saying over and over and over. I'm like, but how else can you help? So it's very, very good at taking large amounts of data, and that's how it was actually trained. But taking large amounts of data, so if you have program-specific information, again, not private information, but just kind of like your outcomes, it can take that again and tell you where the gaps are. Where do you need to fill in? It can tell you about what was happening the last year versus what's happening with this year. And it does it a lot more quickly, because a lot of the databases that we use in nonprofits, if someone hasn't been trained on it, it can spit out these sheets and you're like, still don't understand what the data means. But ChatGPT, because it's so literal, because AI is very, very literal, it drills down exactly to what the issue is, and it will tell you what the issue is. And so what is really great about that is when you are using it and you're training it to understand your data, just like a human, it responds to positive praise. It responds to either praise. If you're like, nope, this isn't what I want, they're like, okay, well, how can I fix it? Or even when it does really well, you're like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for. But when you're using data and there's a specific way that you want it to output it, the best way to do that is to give it an example of what it is that you're looking for, and then go in and say, okay, this is the data that I have based on this example that I've given you. Lay it out, put it together in the way that makes sense. So it's very, very good at the data piece, so that you can make data-driven decisions.
Which it encourages you to do, apparently. So
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a client that we're going to be doing some research for coming up related around, kind of law enforcement, that area. And yeah, I'm curious to see, if there might be a place for it there in terms of we're going to be doing surveys and focus groups and those sorts of things. So curious to see if there's a role that we might be able to, utilize artificial intelligence, even just as a learning experience. Can you share maybe an example of you don't have to specifically name them, but example of a nonprofit that has, been able to implement AI and maybe what some of their experiences have been, maybe what some positive outcomes and maybe some challenges have been, kind of just a practical case for.
Yeah. I have a case study and a ebook that I did around this topic, but I work with the.
And where can people go to find the case study, real quick, just so you.
The case that is it on my website? I'm not sure that it is. I'm not sure
it will be now,
but it will be. I know I posted it on LinkedIn, but I don't think I posted it on the website.
Well, definitely follow Shereese on LinkedIn. She puts up a lot of valuable information, but also probably give her a few days and she'll have it up on the website. So.
And I'll make sure that you have it as well. So if you do show notes, then I'll make sure you have all the stuff.
Definitely.
So this was a nonprofit that did workforce development, and it was around grant writing. Again, one of those top 3 functions. Yeah. And so they had a grant writer, but there was a specific grant that they wanted to go after. And this person was already kind of taxed and overwhelmed. And so they wanted to see if they could implement AI in order to help with the grant writing process. And so what we were able to do was take grants that they had written before. And if you're listening, you can do this yourself as well. Take grants that have been written before and load it into ChatGPT along with their mission, along with mission statement, anything that had been written about the organization, so that it could learn what it was that we wanted to do. So taking all of that information and putting it into ChatGPT, and then the parameters of the grant. So whatever the grant was for, putting in what the grant was for, who it was for, what is the word that I'm looking for? What was the angle that they had to write the grant from? So then you want to make sure that ChatGPT understands, like, who is the organization? Can ask ChatGPT, what it understands about the organization, because you want to speak to it like a regular person. And then from there, put in the questions that the grant is asking. And when ChatGPT has shown you that it understands who you are, your mission and values, and that it can talk like you and it sounds like you, ask it the questions of the grant, and then you fill it in. But you're also still going to have to edit it, because you're still going to have to get the human nuances, the little bit of emotion that has to go in and all of that stuff. But this particular grant was a $200,000 grant that they were writing on. Wow. And they used ChatGPT. It was 80% written by ChatGPT, and the award was funded.
Wow.
So it has the potential to truly help you, and it did not tax the person who was already overwhelmed.
Wow.
Because it's just, and now that they have that chat is in their account, the chat has already been trained. And so now you can either take that particular chat and keep going, but it has a tendency to go really long, or you can copy it and go into another chat and start that process all over again. Right. And if you have team members, everyone on your team has ChatGPT, you can now share the chats and people can collaborate on them. So,
wow. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's so valuable in terms of, especially everything we run into at Angel Oak from our client's perspective, and you mentioned this, the two key challenges, right, are budgets and capacity. So, what can you do that, no matter what you're implementing or no matter what you're trying to accomplish, how can you do it within the budgets and capacity that you have right now? And, I think using a technology like AI can certainly increase capacity without increasing your budget considerably. So
Yes.
I think that, to me, that's a strong case for at least exploring it. When I was doing just a little bit of research on this, I happened to see a poll on LinkedIn about AI. And again, this was, I don't know, it probably wasn't very scientific, but, they got about 1,500 responses, and only about, I think it was less than 40% of people were actually using AI at all, with anything, or even exploring it. And then, so about 60% or more were not, not even, exploring using AI of any kind. What do you think, or do you have any insights into the number of nonprofits who are using it, or the percentage of nonprofits? I mean, I know nonprofits can sometimes not be early adopters, and kind of are late to the table sometimes when it comes to technology. Is that the case for AI, or is this proving different?
Yeah, I don't have exact numbers on that, but I will say from the clients that I come in contact with, that poll seems to be right in alignment. I either come across organizations that know all about it and have already dived into it, and now they just need to know how to make it work. Or I come in contact with people who have never even heard of it, or they are aware of it but don't think that it will work for them. So I think there's still a lot of training that has to go around what it is. All of us at some point in our lives, if we are using Google for email, we are already using it. Just integrating, anything that is suggesting what the next word is, or even on our phones.
Right. That's a good point.
That is, trying to guess what our sentence should be. We're already using it in a very small capacity. I think ChatGPT, because it's creating something from nothing, or generative as we call it, it's a bigger, it's like, wait a minute, hold on, but we're already using it. So I have found that nonprofits are, as you mentioned, they're slow adapters. And in this case, I think this is why this is so important to me. I don't want us to be slow adapters on this, because it's changing so rapidly that by the time you come to it, if you take a long time to get to it, I mean, who knows where we'll be.
Right. Yeah. You'll miss a lot of opportunity, right? To potentially transform some of the work that is being done. Where does, if at all, where does, the inclusivity come into play? Is there a cultural issue with this? Is there a racial aspect to this? Any of those things are, they're embedded in our own culture, right? So does any of that need to be considered when starting to delve into AI and again, maybe going back to ethics or just practical uses?
Yes, absolutely. There is so much information around the bias that is built into AI. And unfortunately, the people who are the early adapters of AI look more like you than they look like me. So,
which is sad for them to be.
Yeah.
By the way, Shereese looks fabulous today. If you get a chance if you're listening to this on podcast, go look at the video. I'm so jealous. I'm bald. It's just amazing hair. And
Thank
so anyway,
you.
but anyway, sorry, Shereese.
I saw oh my God, it was an article a couple of days ago where because we're talking specifically about ChatGPT, but AI is in the realm of pictures, headshots. It's in everything. So I saw an article where this young woman, she looked to be Asian, had submitted a headshot into ChatGPT and asked it to make her look more professional. And the image that came out had blue eyes and lighter skin.
Oh man!
And so I remember reading that article and just kind of like, okay, we're not quite there.
Oh, wow.
And
That's awful.
one of the discussions that people are having around the AI generated headshots is that people are loving them all over social media, but because they're making you look younger and thinner. So
where's the authenticity in that, right?
So yes, there is very much bias that is built into it, and the way that we're getting around it now until it gets to the level that we need it to be is in the training. It's in nonprofits understanding who their persona actually is. And even AI can help you do a marketing persona, but then training it to understand who your client is. And you have to put all of that diversity in the model in order to get it out.
So you have to be what I'm hearing you say is you have to be really intentional about creating a more realistic, inclusive view of maybe whether it's the populations that are being served or the communities that are surrounding that. And to understand that there's probably some built-in bias already, that there is built-in bias that has to be overcome with training, I guess. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is very accurate. And I know we're talking specifically about AI, but when we're talking about inclusivity in general, one of the first things that we want to look at just in general is what is the images that you're using in on your website and in your marketing in general? And is that inclusive? Because if it's not, someone who comes there who doesn't see themselves in your marketing is going to assume that you don't serve them. And so you want to start there. But if it is, you know what your marketing actually, and then actually, this is actually a good place to start in general, because if you can see that, then you can take that information into AI and ask it to produce something that's more inclusive.
Yeah, and that's something that we've always have top of mind here at Angel Oak Creative. It's so important. Our creative director, Shane, and his team are just really mindful of that kind of imagery and how important it is to reflect who you're serving, as well as communicating to and doing that authentic and accurately, right? So it's a great reminder. But I think that's something people have taken away from this is, just let's remember that, there is systemic racism, there is systemic bias that's built into a lot of things. I don't think people are doing it in a conspiracy way of trying to harm anybody, but sadly it's the natural bias that comes from our culture. So I do think that it's a tough conversation for many people to have, but it's an important one for people to consider when they're moving into this and any other technology related area to think about what does this mean for inclusivity and what does this mean for that. I think I think I just see so many other opportunities for some organizations to be able to to teach this to underserved populations could be very empowering, right? From that perspective, is there is there a way that we can start thinking about it programmatically and saying, this is a tool. Angel Oak has done that with some clients and the people that they serve, and taught some social media skills, right, and things like that, so that it's they're able to now that AI is here, it may be different, but people are willing to pay for people to manage social media, right? So having that skill set. So this is another one of those areas that if organizations, I think, can take advantage of it, could be a real boost for people who understand this technology to be able to bring it into communities that are underserved. So
absolutely, because one of the ones that come to mind, specifically if you are in a workforce development, and I know that seems to be my topic of the day, but I love the work that they do. If you are in that space and you are teaching clients, AI can really help them in terms of resume writing, because you can take job descriptions and you can put them into AI, and then AI can spit out, a resume I mean, a resume that's true, or taking their resume and putting it into AI and asking AI to make it relevant to that job. So there is so many different use cases in the community outside of the nonprofit itself that, that nonprofits can consider in getting their work done. Yeah.
Well, I could talk about this all day. And, I'm sure I could ask ChatGPT to generate more questions if we needed to. I didn't think it was going to stop generating questions. It just kept going. I'm like, okay, I'm not getting to all of these, but, I should have said 10 questions. That's the literal aspect, right?
Yes, that is.
Generate questions and it just keeps going. So thank you for today. Thank you for your time. What are one or two takeaways that you really want people to hear from today's conversation, that we want people to leave with?
Yeah. To embrace AI, it's here, it's not going anywhere. To really look at it as a way of implementing it as a team member, to use it responsibly, to use it ethically, and to use it to further a mission. It's not anything to be afraid of. Take it slow, baby steps, not to change the world in a day, but take it very slow. Maybe there's something that is truly annoying about, there's like this one area that you're like, oh my gosh, if we had someone to do this, and see if ChatGPT can help you help in that capacity until you can build your capacity.
And Angel Oak is exploring it too. We're looking at ways that we might be able to use it to increase our efficiency and our capacity, but also maybe how can we create some savings for clients if we can find some things that are more production oriented that they're paying for, but maybe we can find some efficiencies that will reduce their need, the cost of what it, what the cost is for providing that service. So we're curious to see how that goes, and we're going to have some conversations with Shereese as well about what that might look like. How can people find you, AI Consultants for Nonprofits, and just get more information, learn more about your services?
Yeah, so I am at AI Consultants for Nonprofits. But I'm also at ShereeseFloyd.com because it's me. And so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to connect and talk to people on LinkedIn. That's really the only social media platform that I play on. And if you've got any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll make sure that you have the copy of the ebook that has the case studies and everything in it.
That'd be great.
And it also has I think 10 prompts, easy prompts to get you started if you just want to start playing around in it. But let's just connect and have a conversation.
And Shereese is spelled Shereese, Floyd is Loyd. So be sure people are searching for the right expert here. And thanks everybody for listening today. We have some other great episodes on the podcast, have talked to some really amazing people about all things nonprofits, picking their brains and getting this idea of the nonprofit state of minds, helping to build a stronger state of nonprofits in North Carolina and beyond. So we're grateful for that. People can find that information or those podcasts on Spotify or Apple, any other platform that's there, and then angeloakcreative.com, and we're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, I think. So would love to have people engage us there. Shereese, thank you so much for your time, for your real intelligence on this subject, and for sharing your insights there. Excited to see where this goes. Is it the next transforming trend, or is it a fad that's going to flame out? So we'll see how it goes. I'm guessing it's the former, but we'll see.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.